Hello, I'm Dr. Daria Brzezinski, and you're watching What Wize Women Want on Charlottesville Public Access, Comcast Channel 13. Every week we try to bring you interesting topics with women from all over Charlottesville and the Charlottesville area on topics for you, your family, and your community in the hopes that you will use your 52% majority of the population, which is what we are, ladies, and your 85% purchasing power to make informed choices for yourself, for your children, for your family, your community, and your friends. You can go to our website, www.whatwizewomenwant.com, if you'd like to learn any information about our guests, either how to contact them or information about their backgrounds or where they work, or if you've missed something that we mentioned on the program. You can also go to our website and fill out the form if you've got a question to ask for any of our panelists, because every week is listed all the way up through many weeks ahead in order for you to determine what question you might like to ask one of our panelists and have it talked about, because we are taped at least a week in advance. Today we're going to be talking about money, women and money. What is it about women and money? And we have some very interesting ladies here on our panel today. To my right is Margie Swanson. She's financial advisor and owner of M.H. Swanson and Associates. To her right is Maggie Morris, the assistant vice president and branch manager of United Bank. And to her right is Tracey Collins, senior vice president, region director of BB&T Bank. Okay, ladies, women and money. What is it? You know, are we enculturated? Or it seems to me that women seem to have more problems with money than men do. Is that a mystique on my part or misinformation on my part? Or what do you think, Tracey?
I know that women have more problems with money per se, but I think we make decisions differently sometimes than our gender counterparts.
Okay. So tell us what it is that you do for BB&T Bank. We're just going to go around and talk about the various things that we do.
I manage a team of relationship managers in the region of Central Virginia region.
And what does that mean?
It means the folks on my team help people learn about their financial situations, educate them, use their experience to help them make informed decisions. And so we see a lot of decision making on the part of men, women, and couples.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you try to help people navigate. You're not just a banking person.
Correct. Okay. My husband likes to say I work at the bank, but they don't let me touch the money.
Okay. All right. Maggie, what is it that you do?
I manage a branch. I have folks that help people open accounts and tellers that we actually handle the money. And we try to help people make good financial decisions, and we run into a lot of women that we really try to help and take under our wings.
Okay. And Margie?
Well, we're a financial advisory firm, and what we really try to do is help people prepare for retirement, deal with transitions in their life, things like death of spouse, divorce, and really just make sure that people have the information that they need and they have the support to get where they want to be, to set a goal and meet that goal.
Okay. So basically, you all advise people about what to do with their money. So let's say I'm a single mother and I live paycheck to paycheck with my family, and I have a few children. How would you advise me about what to do with my money when I barely have enough to get by during the week?
You know, I think, let me just start by saying that when you are a single person, you have one paycheck, and at that level, I think what you really have to start doing, and Maggie will speak to this also, is just, again, taking time and taking a little bit of money to pay for your own needs first, and not just needs but wants, learning how to deal with your money, but making sure that you have a budget and you stick to that budget. Is that fair to say, Maggie?
It is, because we have to make sure that they're in the right product, that they're not in something that they're going to be paying money that they don't have. And our goal is to get them to a point where, you really need to pay yourself, even if it's $1 a week, open a savings account and start, saving a little. But it takes a little while to get there. It's just a matter of, making sure that they're in a product that they can afford to make their life comfortable.
It's interesting that you use the word product, because something has been fascinating me recently. I noticed that banks are called stores, and was it on the back of a Wells Fargo bank or a BB&T bank or something?
I believe they
Wells Fargo calls
stores.
themselves stores, and you're talking about products. Is there trying to be a shift away from thinking about money in the way we used to think about money, or what is it? Why is it that we're referring to things like that? Do you know?
I don't know. I mean, I'll call it an account or product. It depends on, I just happen to use that word.
It sounds like a marketing term to me. It sounds more about marketing.
I think you better talk to the marketing people.
There you go.
Exactly. I'm sorry, you got the wrong group here. We're not exactly the marketing
I just
people.
assumed because I saw it on Wells Fargo that it was everywhere.
We don't consider ourselves a store. Ourselves a store.
I don't either.
Because we're there to help our customers find what's right for them. I think just like you.
And on the women who are at that place in their life where they're really living, very carefully financially, I think it's really important too for them to try to have a vision for where they want to be and get the resources, because sometimes that's support, education, whatever they are, to improve their financial situation. Because there are always steps you can take. It might not be that they can save, right at the very moment.
I'm glad you said that.
It just may not be possible. But it might be possible for them to prioritize their spending and really understand their spending, and then have someone help them understand how the choices they're making now can have short and long-term impacts, and then help them see a path to more financial stability and security, ultimately to success. Because that's really possible, but you sometimes need support to see your way out of it.
So are your services free when you counsel people, or does it cost money to do that? Do you have to belong to your organization? What is it?
Our services are free. I mean, they can come in and they don't even have to open an account. We have people that go from bank to bank to find out what's going to fit for them the best. And all of our information is free. And I mean, I feel that's my job, is helping people finding the right path.
Okay.
That's one other thing I just think is important. When you talk about budgets, there's wants and there's needs. So it's really critical that people begin to understand that a want is different than a need. In other words, the individual who has to replace tires because they're bald, that's a need.
Right.
Okay. A want is seeing something, a pair of shoes or a purse, and it may be outside your budget, or you may want to put it in your budget, but that's about something that you really feel like you want. And I think that people, if they would grade their wants and their needs on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, I really, really need this, okay, that's the tires, or wants, I really, really want that pair of shoes, but perhaps I need to save for the cost of those shoes instead of just going ahead and spending money, putting on credit. It's a very easy credit society right now, so it's very difficult to hold yourself in check, because it seems as if what you're buying has no consequences, but as Tracey said, there are huge consequences to some of the short and long-term decisions that you make.
And sometimes people don't understand that,
Yes.
What the consequences might be, because it seems like a small decision. There have been some changes to make statements easier to really understand if you're not in the know. And that's a good thing. But I think that it's not just going to a financial institution, quite honestly, that can help you if you're really on the ropes. This is a wonderful community with lots of other nonprofit support agencies that can help out as well.
Like, for example?
Well, I know the United Way has many different related organizations that help you with education, job seeking, things like that.
You can also go to credit unions. They often have free services and things for people to teach them about budgeting and about other things. And again, some of Maggie's services, a lot of them are free, because what you're trying to do is help a consumer become a more educated consumer, because they become a better customer in the long run.
Well, it seems to me that our culture, we are enculturated to be consumers and not think about, I mean, in days gone by, I don't think I've ever saw hoarders before like we have ever since, the end of World War II and onward. At first I thought it was a mindset about a fear of war, but now, the more hoarders I see, the more I see that it has absolutely nothing to do with that, but rather all kinds of other issues. So this consumer culture that we have been enculturated with doesn't allow people to become educated, in terms of how to use their money. I mean, I think it's much more about, the schools are saturated with people trying to sell their products and have you become lifelong consumers, so how do you fight against a whole culture, in terms of helping people budget? I mean, it seems to me that should be a skill we learn in high school or, from our parents or whatever. And I don't think people are sitting down teaching their children in school.
I know that a lot of banks, and you probably do this too, will take a time to go out to schools and teach them about money and teach them about how to budget. And it's amazing. It's like, we don't learn this at home, So, I mean, it's all about education. And it kind of goes along the same lines with what do I need, what Margie said, what do I need and what do I want, sometimes their wants, they really feel like I need this. And
right.
You have to talk to them, why, how's that going to make your life?
Done. Yeah, you have to spend $50 on nails because that's a need.
A need.
It's like, wait a minute, let's really think about what is it for you.
Yeah, and I think an important thing to understand is that it's rarely about the money. It's about what the money is getting or doing.
Right.
And so it's really often the understanding of what am I trying to fill? What hole emotionally do I have that I'm trying to fill with this purchase? Do I feel unsuccessful? Did I have a bad day? So I'm just going to go shop and not think about the consequences. That is a behavior that is self-destructive, but it needs to be recognized and then it can be dealt with. And that's really where I think people fall into a trap. There's something that is not right in their life. And so it becomes a compulsive behavior to fill it somehow, some way. And, people who have a happy, well-balanced life tend to have a healthier relationship with their finances.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so this is a whole culture we're talking about that is, going the opposite direction in terms of what you're talking about, balance, knowing what your wants and needs are. How do you fight against, obviously you don't fight against it, but, besides I don't see a whole lot of educated young people with regards to money. I see, my own children, of course, I tried to sit down and work with them about balancing their budget and having money to spend and not spend for things. But I think parents, in the kind of affluent culture that we have, are, when a child says, I want, they give it, they're in the middle, I see in the middle of the grocery store, the toys are lined up at the end of the counter and every child or
shopping
candy
at the wrong store.
has to have it and the parents give in. So, what can we do to create a more balanced lifestyle for people, and be able to help them to understand these, everything that they see on television or in the store, the stores are getting bigger and more, and, it's about buying more products, and the products don't last long, so we have to keep on buying more. So you must have a really difficult position in order to be able to help people.
It's not easy. It's really not easy. And what Tracey said is absolutely true. It's not just about the money. It is about some emotional void. And the problem is, in our families, and even years ago, there wasn't credit cards, so that wasn't an issue. You had to pay cash for something. There wasn't really extended credit, so you really had to make choices carefully. But today, because there are credit cards, again, it's much more difficult to put a real value or cost. Thinking about that cup of coffee that costs you $3 at a specific store, and if it's held on credit and that credit is 12, 15, 18%, you're literally talking about having to pay for that $3 cup of coffee $8, $10, $12 over time because you carry a balance. So I really do think it is a cultural issue. It's about us taking control, about looking at your own behaviors and making sure that your decisions make sense from a standpoint of where do I want to be. And as Tracey said earlier, which I think is really important, having a vision. not just about today, not just about those things in your closet or, how that makes you feel, but rather, where do I want to be? It's really hard to look ahead more than a day or two. It's, sometimes a week or 10 days. But the reality is that people will be 59, 60, and 65. And if we don't have some real shift emotionally, then we're going to have people who will not have enough at retirement, who will not have enough money other than Social Security. There's a really deep issues out there that people have to deal with. My background's in psychology, so this really interests me.
I was going to say, it sounds like...
This is fascinating, but the fact is that it is really educational. You have to be talking to people. You have to be really... almost making them see how their behaviors are hurting them, which is what Tracey was talking about earlier. Very hard to do.
Yes, exactly.
It's part of who they are. It's part of their DNA.
Well, it seems to me like we were all talking about you all bankers being psychologists too, as well as working in.
I believe so.
Well, it's a people business.
It is.
And one of the things
right.
that helps you be successful is the ability to connect with people. It's not about what they're telling you they want. It's what they really, really want and need behind that, and helping them find the solutions to get exactly what it is that they want and need, but helping them understand the relationship of how all of the pieces of their financial life come together to get them there or not. What are the holes in what they're doing that are pitfalls? And I don't know that it's quite as bleak as you might think, Daria. Particularly
because I see in therapy, I see all these people.
You're seeing people who've come to you and they have emotional challenges. So naturally, they're not necessarily going to have a healthy relationship.
But I'm saying they're having financial and emotional challenges simultaneously.
And so you're seeing a select part of the population.
Right.
I think generally speaking, most people are not ready to fall off the financial cliff, but if they understood a little bit more about how the decisions they're making now affect them long term, they could certainly make decisions in a better way for what they really want. And that is where education, I think, is critical. And I love the education earlier and sooner, and from parents as well. And that is really where I feel like our society could do a little bit better. The same way we're starting to educate about food and we're starting to have better food choices in the schools, having money and budgeting and all of that education at an earlier level, I think is a powerful thing for this society.
It saddens me that we have to, rely on education to fill all the gaps that, families aren't doing who seem to be in a hurry, going everywhere.
But remember, it takes a village.
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
I don't think you should lay it all on the shoulders of parents who are also having to work.
Right.
I think it is a team effort because the society benefits when a
Right.
child is well educated, so it should take part.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely. So these people who are, you're talking about emotional sort of deficiencies or self-esteem issues or self-worth issues, whatever it is that we're talking about here. It would seem to me that those are the kinds of people that are vulnerable to, the predators out there who will be looking at them for all kinds of things. What's going on out there in terms of scams? We want to inform people. I'm not bringing people down. I want to inform people.
Right. But I mean, that is one group of folks that really get hit hard. People that are living paycheck to paycheck, they get a letter in the mail, and it says, "You've won the lottery. Here's $4,500. Deposit it to your checking account, and then send 4,000 of it to me by Western Union." They're out
people do that.
$4,500. They're desperate.
And you've seen this.
Oh, we have customers bring them to us all the time. I know at least once a month.
Wow.
I just got one the other day. Elderly gentleman brought one in, and he said, "My wife said this is a scam, Miss Morris. Is this a scam?" And I looked at it and I said, "Well, the stamp is from South Africa. The letter is addressed. It says it's from Canada. The check is an out-of-state check, and it doesn't even look real. So what do you think?" If it sounds too good to be true,
It is too good to be true.
Yeah. So the folks living paycheck to paycheck, if we don't catch it, they could really fall victim and be in big trouble.
Wow.
So, that's one of the methods. And another one is phone calls.
Phone calls.
Send me some money. Your grandchild is in jail.
Oh, and Daria,
Oh
you
my
remember
goodness.
the emails. You remember when your email got hacked, and
There you
everyone
go.
got an email saying, "This is Daria. I'm in Europe. My purse was stolen. I have nothing. Please send money."
And ironically, that email that came, people know I go to Europe. And so, but anybody who knew me knew that I write in letter format every time I write. And that was run on sentences that didn't have capitals. So,
Yeah.
but I did have one friend who actually walked she was so upset, she actually walked to Western Union and thankfully called her husband before that and said, "That is a scam. Don't you dare send the money." So, and again, vulnerable people who, and this was somebody who I considered to be an intelligent person, but because it made sense, because that is my lifestyle.
All she could think about emotionally was her
Exactly.
friend upset. And
right.
we see that all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
People are most vulnerable when they've had some sort of emotional upset, the loss of a spouse or a
Yep.
family member. That is the worst possible time to be making permanent financial decisions. And that's often when people approach them and pressure them to do just that.
Right.
What kinds, how long would you suggest for people, for example, who lose a spouse,
It varies.
to wait?
It depends.
It
It really
varies.
depends.
It's a
Yeah.
personal journey that someone takes when they're grieving.
Right.
But that is a really vulnerable time. And often we see a spouse who loses the spouse that generally made those decisions. And so what we try to do before someone loses their partner that makes all those decisions is make sure that everyone understands, who the trusted advisors are, what the overall strategy is, so that they're not concerned about their finances when they should be allowed to grieve.
Well, you and I know that we've had mutual clients that that's have happened to,
And
and
it's
that
so hard.
and here they are, in their 60s, and the other person has no idea anything about the finances.
That's a hard place to be.
And if you don't have somebody who's protecting you in your life, or a family member or somebody else, I mean, you could easily, have issues. You were telling me a story. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the elderly either. I had a young lady come in that her husband handled all of the finances. They got divorced. He had never paid taxes for 2 years. And she came in, the attorney that was taking care of everything said, "You need to buy a house. You need to, fill out an application because you're going to be getting some money." And I mean, it was going to be a big enough down payment that she would be set. She was so frightened she couldn't fill out the application, and I offered to sit down and help her fill it out. But it was just so overwhelming to her because she never handled finances. She never balanced a checkbook, never handled a checkbook or anything. So, I mean, it's just, it's not a good place
No,
to be.
it's not.
Transitions are tough, no matter
I was just gonna
whether it's
say
the
that.
death of a spouse, whether it's a divorce,
Yeah.
whether
Right.
you've gotten a new job or lost a job.
Right.
I mean, the fact is that there are many transitions that throw people for a loop. And when you asked about when is the right time, again, it's a very individual and personal kind of a thing. And decision making, when you do have trusted advisor, it helps a lot
It does.
because the decisions are done when you're ready and not beforehand. And unfortunately, family members, some of them, in trying to be helpful, try to push decisions. "Oh, you need to move, Mom. You need to do this." The fact is that it's very important that people not make major transitions and moves because they've just had a major transition.
Right.
Emotionally, you tend to make the wrong choice
Right.
if you make it in haste or if you make it while you're in the process of trying to grieve. So it's really critical that you just take your time. So again, there is no time frame. But it is important that you have people around you, so you have a team of people who ensure that those decisions that you make are the best possible ones for you at the right time.
I feel blessed that many of my clients who come to me after the death of a spouse, especially, or during a divorce, come and ask me, where can I go to get guidance? Because my children are pressuring me to sell my house. And I have seen this over and over again. for example, the spouse will be in a nursing home for extended period of time, and the children tell them to put the house in the children's name, and all of a sudden the spouse dies and the children evict the parent. And I mean, some of the things that I see are just unbelievable sometimes. And so, but people, when they're in an emotional state they're so distraught, don't think to ask for help, don't think to go outside, and listen to their children or people who may not have,
The vulnerability is incredible. You're talking about having a part of your body cut off. I mean, really what a lot of that is.
Right.
So you're absolutely right. I mean, it could be a family member, it could be a cousin, it could be anyone. Well-meaning as some of them might be, but they really can't move forward with big decisions because it's the wrong time to do it. And as you say, for the purposes of avoiding taxes or avoiding, paying for medical costs and things like that, there are a lot of decisions made that you really need competent attorneys and other people guiding you in that, because you can make some really bad choices, and unfortunately, you can have people ultimately making decisions for you when you're perfectly capable and competent of making your own decisions. But because of the choices that you made, now those decisions rest on someone else's shoulders, which may or may not be what your intention was.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Family members mean well, but it's always better to go outside, someone that can look at it without any prejudice, just it makes more sense.
And be objective.
And a really critical thing for people to think about now when they're healthy and not in emotional distress is making sure that their wishes about who they would want to make decisions for them from a health standpoint, from a legal standpoint, from a financial standpoint, are in writing with the appropriate legal paperwork before a transition comes. People tend to feel just absolutely on top of the world and nothing can happen to me, and they don't expect something to happen. And that's one of the big things I usually recommend is, I know you don't want to pay attention to what could happen, but just put some documents in place to protect you while you're living, but can't make decisions for yourself.
Right.
And I had a mother who was killed in a car accident Christmas Eve, and thought, because she taught gymnastic courses during the week and everything, and was the picture perfect of health, that she'd live forever, and left without a will. But although my father was still alive, but the point is that,
You never know.
Exactly.
And it's honestly, when you're gone, you're gone. It's really when you're not gone, but you can't tell someone what you want done. That is the scariest time. Because you might come out of whatever medical situation you're in and be left with decisions you didn't want made. By people you
remember
wouldn't have
Terry
trusted.
Schiavo from years ago?
Right.
And what a huge deal
that was a mess.
became?
Yeah.
It was a horrifying situation. Actually, having Congress get involved and having all this hullabaloo. And the reality, had she taken the time, and she had said, according to her spouse, that she did not want to be kept alive artificially, had she just written that down, and quite frankly, they're holographic documents. If you just write it down and have a few people, friends, witness it, have some wine. But in that way, at least you have a document that says, this is what I want, this is what I don't want. There's a thing called 5 Wishes that you can get from hospice, which is an excellent document. But as Tracey said, there's a sense that, no matter what, I'm healthy. It's not about you being healthy. It's about crossing the street. A bus comes along. You don't know what's going to happen. And if you really want to protect the people that you leave behind, then you need to let them know what's important to you, so they can take that in consideration. As Tracey said, if they're still here, what do you want me to do and not do? And if you're gone, this is what I really would like to have happen with things that are important to me or to my assets.
And then I was going to say, and that all relates to, it may sound like we're talking about health issues here, but it all relates to finance as well. Because, depending on what you choose in terms of your medical or, whatever, even being burial pieces of information.
And who's going to pay your bills, all
exactly.
of that. Yeah.
Exactly.
And women have a tendency to put their needs behind the needs of their family members. And I think it's really important to understand that if they don't take the time to put these sorts of documents in place, they actually cause a lot of stress on their family in times when the family shouldn't have to be wondering what they really wanted.
Right.
And so from an altruistic standpoint, it's a good thing to do as well.
Even though we may not even think about it at the moment.
Right.
You are listening to What Wize Women Want on Charlottesville's public access television, Comcast Channel 13. I'm Dr. Daria Brzezinski, and we are here talking about money, finance, everything imaginable regarding money, and hopefully you will be more informed after watching this program. My panelists today, to my right, are Margie Swanson, financial advisor and owner of MH Swanson and Associates, Maggie Morris of United Bank, the assistant vice president and bank manager, and Tracey Collins, the senior vice president and region director of BB&T Bank. And we're talking about all kinds of issues regarding money. If you'd like to find out more information or talk to any one of our panelists on our today, you can go to our website, www.wizewomenwant.com. And remember, Wize is spelled with a Z. And you can actually find information on how to contact them or a little bit more about their backgrounds. As we continue this conversation about money, so for people to understand what kind of investments, I mean, it's so confusing to the general public, myself included, and I think of myself as a pretty intelligent person. Oh my gosh, there's short-term investments, there's long-term investments, there's stocks, there's bonds, there's CDs, there's savings accounts. Heavens, you need a degree in banking in order to be able to understand it. So give us a little bit of information about a lot of these terms that I just threw around in terms of what are these things and what are the benefits or, drawbacks of them. A little bit of balance.
You can start with some really pulling down the information that seems complex and impossible to understand, and thinking about stocks or equities as ownership. It's an ownership process. Really, it's own. And then you talk about bonds.
Tell people what an equity is.
An equity is a stock. Okay. It's a company.
Right.
Okay. So when you own a company stock or own shares within a company, you basically have some say in how they're run, what their earnings are about. If something goes wrong, you can make a noise. You can absolutely have your voice heard. Whereas with bonds or fixed income, even CDs are a form of a loan. Okay, so
CDs are certificates of deposit.
Certificates of deposit, exactly. So there's loans and there's own. There's loan and own. And again, loan is bonds or fixed income, and own is stocks, equities, things like that. It's not as complex as it seems. It's just, I believe that for some people within our profession, there's a little bit of a mystique that they place on things so that people don't understand and feel like they have to fully believe or look at someone else to make these choices. And the fact is, it's pretty simple. There's a lot of choices, absolutely, but it's not impossible to understand.
Margie brings up a great point. One of the key things when you're trying to learn about this or do something with your own money is finding someone who can speak your language.
Yes.
Because it's about you, it's your money. And the point is being able to engage with someone who gets that it's your money and that you're making the decisions and is willing to inform you and have you be able to understand everything that's going on. You shouldn't ever have to walk away from a conversation and feel like you really didn't understand what was said. If that happens, you should run screaming in the other direction and find somebody else to talk to.
So when somebody comes into you and says, I have a certain amount of money and I'd like to be able to do something with it, I mean, is there a computer program that you use to, kind of look at all of their assets and their, income and all that kind of thing?
I don't know about you, but I start with asking, what are your plans with the money? Do you need this money anytime soon, or is it something that you can just put away and not think about and let it grow? And it also depends on the amount of money. I mean, we have the early, the newlywed couple that comes in and they just want to start saving. An easy little savings account is perfect way to start. And I love seeing this. I'll get them to open up a savings account and then they'll come back to me maybe a year. We have a couple $1,000s. We want to open a CD. What's your recommendation? And I mean, they're making it grow so that eventually they can do these other investments. And it's just, is success. I mean, it's a great way to start, and I get a lot of satisfaction out of that.
You bring up something really important, which I think is critical for people to think about. You are marrying someone. You are marrying their debts. You're acquiring their debts. you're having to deal with mistakes that they've made in their past. So I think that's really important that everyone understand. That's true for men or women, that if you go into a relationship, you need to know more about the person that you're going to be partnering with, because their decisions, good and bad, can impact your future, your credit report, your credit score. And all those things impact the interest rates that you pay on new mortgages, whether you can or cannot buy a house.
Yep.
So it's really, I'm sorry to kind of divert a little bit, but it just seems really
But
critical.
it is a part.
Because
It
it's
really
wonderful
is.
when you can get a couple who will save, but you also get couples who have situations that they have come about because one or the other of them have made some very bad choices. Gone through bankruptcy, something else like that.
You know, finances is one major reason among many major reasons that anyone considering marriage, which is a legal binding contract, should have premarital counseling. Whether you get it through the church, whether you get it through any other source, you should have those mediated conversations about all the tough things that you need to think about clearly before you join lives and finances with anyone else. And whether a prenuptial is appropriate or not should be considered if they're well-established folks joining different careers and families. And they shouldn't be afraid of discussing something like that. But often that conversation gets lost in the glow of the emotion.
Yes, ma'am.
And there's no one right way for a couple to manage their finances as long as it's successfully achieving what they want and it's financially stable.
Right.
I have seen people manage finances separately, very successfully, very happily, because they have different attitude towards money or they need a certain level of control. There is nothing wrong with that. And I've seen people meld everything together and they're perfectly happy. The key is finding a way that works for you.
And as a therapist, I will say that I have seen time and time again how that conversation never happened.
Yeah.
They may have gone to their minister, but they sure didn't start that
about money.
conversation about money.
No.
Yeah, particularly with second families. I mean,
Yes.
now you're really talking
Yes.
about something that can create huge problems,
Yep.
and it's absolutely critical, as you say, through mediation or some other process. And I'm not sure whether all ministers have the capability of talking about
Right.
that, but it should be a part of the dialogue.
Yep, yep.
Just as we should educate children, we need to educate couples to understand how, again, the decision to marry can impact them.
Absolutely.
Oh, but we're so in love.
I
We
know.
were
That's
so in
great.
love.
That's great.
We don't want to
great.
thwart that
Yeah.
by
And then
talking
after the
about
honeymoon,
money.
surprise.
If you're going to marry, you're going to have a lot harder conversations than talking about money before
That's
you get
true.
married. And if you can't handle that, you shouldn't be tying the
Yeah.
knot.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
That's a good
yes.
point.
You were talking about credit score. What's you know, we hear about credit score and all that. What's a good credit score for people to have? I mean, what's not good?
Over
What's
720
good?
is
Over
good.
720 is good. What's not good?
Oh, boy.
Under
5, 6,
680,
Yeah.
Right.
680.
Yeah.
under 680, 650, something
Okay.
I mean,
along.
they'll go all the way down to 100, I believe.
Yeah,
there's
but
some-
it really starts to
Whoa.
impact your
Yeah.
rates. If you're above
That's about
720,
what I was gonna ask you.
then you have, probably access to the better lending rates.
Okay.
If you start to go below that, then incrementally your rates go up.
And does that that's just for borrowing money, or does that also have to do with your credit card and
Well,
other
it
kinds
also
of things?
affects
Everything.
insurance, everything. I
Exactly.
mean,
What do you mean
insurance
insurance?
companies.
Oh, yeah.
Car insurance.
Right.
If
Yeah.
you do
Yeah.
not manage, many car insurance providers will periodically check your credit score. And
Really?
because if you cannot responsibly manage your finances, then it can point to a risk profile that tends to have less, have more accidents.
Really?
Things like that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's a first. I hadn't heard that one
And
before.
if people don't know, there's a free credit reporting, which is annualcreditreport.com. Forget about all the other freebies that are not so free. But annualcreditreport.com is where people can go and actually look at their credit reports. And they can do one every 3 months or so from the different companies, TransUnion, Experian, et cetera. And they can really look and see what's going on. It makes a huge difference. And I believe there's a free Credit Karma does at least basically an idea of what your credit score. When you get a credit score, you often have to pay for that. Although if you're going for a loan, you can ask the person who's doing it what the credit score says, so you get more information on that.
And the good news on credit is that it is not permanent. If you find yourself in a situation where your credit is less than perfect, you can fix that.
How do you do that? Because I know there's a lot of people out there.
By understanding what goes into the credit score, which is usage of credit, how much credit you're using, how much credit you have extended to you, and whether your payments are on time. Paying a payment past 30 days of the due date automatically dings your credit. Using a credit card and having a balance over 50% of the available credit line automatically lowers your credit. Having too many credit cards out there lowers your credit. Too many inquiries lowers your credit. But you can fix even bankruptcies. Over time will drop off. So it's important if you find yourself in a situation where you really want to improve your credit, visiting a financial institution does give you the resources you need to help rebuild that credit. And I've seen it done many, many times. And I have seen very successful professional people not really understand how, even though they're out saving the world with their job, if they missed or didn't catch the Sears bill, your credit can tank. And so it's nothing that hasn't happened to the most successful people in the world.
I've seen that
and
happen.
just owning it and getting it fixed, it really can be turned around in, just a couple of years.
Not paying a ticket,
Sure.
all those kinds of
and
things.
things you don't even realize sometimes. A missed medical bill.
Right.
That went to
Right.
collection and you moved, and so it's going to an old address. I've seen lots of different things. A divorce, where there was an account that somehow got lost, and with everyone moving, it's now accrued, so.
So it's really a good idea to at least pull your credit report once a year. That way you might have some things on your credit report that don't even belong on there. Especially I've seen junior, senior situation, and junior's credit is intermingled with senior. And so it's a good idea to pull it once a year, give it a good review, and then take care of any of the items that don't belong on there. Or, wow, like you said, I forgot about this. We
Right.
moved, and why didn't they contact me? Well, they couldn't contact you. So, and the phone numbers were on there too, as well.
Well, I've actually
contact those
recently
people.
had a situation, and I didn't even realize it was on my credit report or anything because I wasn't looking at credit. But I recently got a bill from UVA Hospital from 1995. Apparently, they had done an audit or something. I don't know what happened over there, but I came up in the computer and I went, what?
How would you
really?
prove if you paid it
Well,
from that long
so
ago?
I said, please send me the bill. And it wasn't even me. But it was on my credit card. On my credit report. And I had no idea of any of this because I never received the original bill from it.
Because it wasn't you.
Because it wasn't me, and it went somewhere else.
And they reported it
and
on
they reported
your
on my
Social
Social
Security
Security
number.
number. And I would have never known this had I not received the bill. And I went to my credit report, and there it was. And I said, my God, goodness.
Anytime human beings are involved with entering information, there's absolutely the chance for error.
Yeah,
That's right. It's not a
And
computer
so,
That many years ago.
I know, it's amazing. Another thing that I always recommend when you have couples is making sure that each person has their own credit lines open and active, even if they only use it every once and again, because if there is a death or a divorce, you want each of the parties to be able to acquire credit. And the absence of a credit history can sometimes be a challenge when you're applying for credit.
Well, not just having a credit history, but also in the sense of the death. Sometimes assets get frozen or money gets frozen, and you have
And you
no
need
idea.
resources.
Right, exactly. And that also allows for both parties to know a lot about what's going on, in terms of your finances and things. So do people normally sit down and have I'm not married, so do people normally sit down and have conversations about this and work the bills together? One person does the bills, or
It varies. It really is.
Okay.
It's so individual. It's just as Tracey was saying, you get hers, his, yours, ours, part hers, his, it's a really complex system. And for some people it works really well. And for others, again, they have their own issues. You could even have totally separate accounts and have issues because one person is paying a larger percentage and the other person resents what's happening. You mentioned earlier, and I'm going to bring this up because this is really critical to me, about scams and things. I just wanted to alert people that the internet there's really lots of things that are coming about with the internet, not just with the, we have a foreign money for you, but my husband got a note about 10 months ago that he owed just under $10,000. and from a company called Swanson Medical, which of course is our last name. So someone had stolen his identity. We believe it may be because of Medicare cards, which unfortunately have Social Security numbers on there, all the Social Security number, birth dates, and everything else. But they stole his information, and they used one of the online PayPal type system in order to transfer money. And obviously these were related parties, but they stole just under $10,000. And of course it came back to haunt us. And they tried to then do a tax return in my husband's name in January. Now, we always pay money, so of course the IRS contacted us and said, excuse us, what's going on? But this is a new kind of a thing. It didn't show on our credit report. Nothing was on the credit report. But it was a very insidious process, so you have to be very careful, not only with the information, but to watch out for all sorts of things. And repairing your credit is very difficult to do. And it's time consuming, and it takes a lot out of you because it just feels like you've been violated, very much like when someone's home is vandalized. So this is a really interesting kind of a new wave, is how the internet is creating other kinds of things. Now, eventually, hopefully laws will catch up, but at this point in time, they haven't.
Well, I also recently got an email that talked about being careful about downloading things on your computer, because there's a virus now where if you download this particular virus, it shuts down you can't even access your own computer, and you have to pay a ransom to get your computer back. It's between
I wouldn't pay. That thing can go out the window.
It's between $300 and $900, and once you pay the ransom, you may be guaranteed getting back on your computer, but not having all the files there. So, there's all kinds of things going on in this world, and I don't want to sound like we're down or, but I think what we're trying to do here is prevention, for people to be aware, to think about the kinds of things they're doing with their money, because, most everybody is vulnerable, because we can't be educated on every single thing that goes on. And so it's really important that we become educated on all these issues, rather than, thinking this is a downer or whatever. But having conversation, and I think, I've been in families that have asked me to come into their homes and help them communicate, and I sit and watch them, and they're all sitting with texting, and I'm going, and you want me to tell you how to communicate. So, and that's part of the problem, we're becoming enculturated with not communicating with each other in a way that's meaningful, as we, talked about here. So that's why we're trying to have these conversations, to make people aware, in order for them to be a little bit more, to think about their banking. So one person said to me the other day, after everything crashed very recently in the last few years, I would have been better off if I had my money in a savings account than in, having invested in the stock market and everything else. Oh, I figured it out. I would have been better off if I had just left it sitting there in a savings account. Was that true? I've heard that so many times. Was that true?
It depends.
It depends.
Exactly. It really depends. And usually when you're thinking of anything having to do with money, life, insurance, it's super duper important to understand what level of risk you're willing personally to take, because it is a personal thing.
Okay.
Some people buy the platinum super double coverage for their house, right? And some people say, what? I can handle a certain amount of repairs and things like that myself. I'm going to make the deductible kind of large and not get the platinum coverage. That's a very individual decision. And the level of risk you take with anything is there. So the important thing is to partner with someone who can help educate you on really what risk is, because there's interest rate risk, there's market risk, there's inflation risk. There's risk with every decision you take.
Okay.
And so it's important for you to understand what the risks are you're taking and what you're comfortable with.
Right. Okay. Unfortunately, that risk can also be somewhat create paralysis. You have to be careful not to allow a fear of risk, because as Tracey said, there's risk in everything.
Yep.
It's fine to earn 1% on a CD, but if inflation is 2 or 2.5 or 3, then you're losing money. That's not good for your security, your future security. So it's really hard. And again, you have to understand that if you need the money within 5 years or less, it's a different process.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what you earn. It matters that you don't lose anything.
Right.
So when all of us talk to people, we're looking at, what do you need? Here's a lump sum. Let's say you inherited some dollars from your aunt, from someone. Okay, what do you need within the next 5 years? What are your goals in the next 5 years? And then what can we do to get you ready for retirement? What can we do to get your children ready for education? What are the different things that you want to do with these dollars? And how do we do it in a way that we take into consideration your risk, but we also use what we can of the market to help you get closer to where you want to be? In 2008, I got shingles. That was a horrible illness. And because it was a terrifying time for financial people. It was a very difficult time. And of course we empathize and we care, and we all lost money. I mean, that's what happens. But to think that the only way you could have done better if you'd kept it in your stocking, your mattress, and a savings account. Again, it depends on what you did after that. Did you make a decision that was long-term or short-term?
Well, I'd like to know why you ladies got into the world of finance. Each one of you individually, whatever possessed you to basically get in it. Truly, it has been in the past a man's profession. So what
Oh, this is funny. I've been in banking over 26 years now, and I worked for a company. This older lady was working in my office. I worked in accounts payable. And she said, Maggie, this is not, you need to do something with your life. This is a dead-end job. You need to do something else. I know someone, it was Sovereign Bank back then. She said, you need to go and apply. They have an opening for a secretary position. I said, okay, let me try it. And I got the job, and I'll never forget when I gave my notice with that company. Can't believe you're leaving us. We just gave you a 10-cent raise. But I've been in banking. I started in a branch as a secretary, and it's a field where you can learn and grow. It's very, I enjoy working with people, so this is where I want to be, and I love working with the public. I mean, you take the good with the bad. I mean, you have people hollering at you, but the majority of the people, I get so much satisfaction when I see someone that I've helped, and they come back to me. It just makes me feel really good. So,
Tracey?
Well, I had a need when I was 18 to invest a small sum of money, and I graduated, college prep, advanced classes, blah, blah, blah. I was going to, grade school, Virginia Tech. And love you, UVA, but it was Virginia Tech. And I sat down and listened to this gentleman explain to me what he wanted to do with my money, and I did not understand one sentence. So I asked him to explain it again. And I still didn't understand a single thing he said. And I thought, okay, maybe it's just too hard and I'm just not smart enough. And after school, I came back and ended up working, helping a couple who did finances get their computer system set up, because I could get computers. And I listened to them talk to clients, and it was different. I could understand everything they were saying. And I thought, this is the way it should be. And this isn't hard. And they're really making a difference with people. And I thought I could do this, because to me, it was about people. And to have that very frustrating experience of needing help and really not understanding what was being done and really not understanding how it was happening, and then seeing it could be done differently, I thought this is a really good calling for me.
Margie?
This is a great profession for women. I don't think enough women really understand that. I was originally a school psychologist, so I graduated school, I was a school psychologist, and that was all about paper, not about people, and I really crushed my spirit. I couldn't do it anymore. While I was a school psychologist, I also had a chance to be a part of a 403B, which is a tax-sheltered kind of a plan for schools. And I found out some of the options that were available, horrible, horrible options. And I had that same kind of epiphany. It's like, there's got to be a better way, and there has to be a way to understand. And I started to read more journals about money than I did about psychology. And that's really, for me, what changed. It was a big change, and what we do has a huge impact on people. It is about relationships. I think most jobs are about relationships. People just don't understand that.
Right.
But this is a great profession, and one in which we can make a huge difference.
And it seems to me that probably more women aren't following in your footsteps because they think it's mathematics, and mathematics tends to scare people because it's about number. It's about numbers. It's and again, because it sounds complicated to the average person. Right. It's made complicated so that we don't understand it. And Tracey knows this story. I mean, I had a client who I had a friend who, I looked at her after she died, her portfolio, and I realized that the person who was managing her account kept changing her accounts every year in order to make money off of her, because she never informed herself about what was going on. And so, one of the reasons why I see this time and time and time again, so one of the reasons really why I want to do these kinds of programs is to let women know that there are women out there who you can go to talk to about finances, that it's not a taboo subject, that we need to have these conversations, and that, your emotions, and whether you're in love or whatever it is, or depressed, no matter what it is, try and overcome that by going to someone like you all who have integrity and who know what you're doing and have a simple way of, being able to describe what it is that you do to people. And that's what I really appreciate about all of you. So I want to thank you very much for what you do for
You're welcome.
Thank you. This has been great.
And what we have, in the short time left, by the way, I'm Dr. Daria Brzezinski, and you are watching What Wize Women Want on Charlottesville Public Access Television, Comcast Channel 13. And we're here today talking about money. And we've had as our wonderful panelists, Margie Swanson from MH Swanson and Associates, who's a financial advisor and owner, Maggie Morris, who's Assistant Vice President and Branch Manager of United Bank, and Tracey Collins, Senior Vice President, Region Director of BB&T Bank. And, you ladies all have wonderful titles as well. So we're not talking about cashiers here. So you must be pretty proficient in the kinds of things that you do. And
We better be.
Although I'll tell you, Daria, I had to be a cashier for a couple of weeks, and I'm glad that is a really tough job.
It
If I had to
Yes.
keep, my drawer never balanced.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, dear.
It was
Yeah.
really a challenge. So it's a special skill set.
yes, I'm sure it is. Well, please join us next week. Next week, our conversation will be exploring our inner selves. And for that session, we will be talking about yoga, meditation, massage, journaling, and we will have a panel of expert women who will be talking about journeying and exploring our inner selves in order to bring out these kinds of things from the inside out, so to speak, and healing ourselves or working with ourselves from the inside out. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and we've hoped you learned something about money today. And we'll go to one of these ladies and have a discussion about money in your own life and the things that you can do. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful evening.